Greetings, my fellow frame-blooded sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LO3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida, and today's date is Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Yeah, so it looks like some people aren't too pleased with Joe Biden's executive orders. I was watching something from Next News Network, Gary Franchi. Just observing, and it sounds like Meghan McCain is not impressed with the doublespeak from Joe Biden on one of his executive orders, especially with the mask thing. And you voted for him. Remember, being a her conformist doesn't pay. And I'm not here to disrespect the late John McCain, but based on his actions, his track record, he wasn't a great senator either. And plus, he was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, a globalist asset. Like I said before, I go by their actions, not by them personally. Okay, so make that clear. And of course, they had a national remembrance of the Holocaust, and which happened in occupied Germany, Nazi Germany during the time. And they said, and they're talking about, well, all this stuff is happening. They should remember the past. Exactly. Hate speech and all that propaganda. So remember, government's very good at it, and they have their minions to do the same and blame it on the other person, like we're seeing right now. You know, blame one person for everything. And folks just follow the herd. Moo! Just another cow, right? So, you know, just always remember, folks, government in Latin means control of the mind. You never trust them. Period. Yep, and you know, of course, there's stuff coming up with the whole group of people from Honduras doing the caravan trying to reach America. And of course, Biden wants to shut down the wall. And of course, and trying to let them in by executive order. And of course, a Texas judge says, nope, invalid. Because remember, folks, Congress has the power to do in uniform naturalization laws. Okay? Article 1, Section 8 is self-explanatory. Not by white privileged Biden. Stroke of the pen don't mean dilly squat. The only time they can use an executive order if the laws are in the books. So always remember that. Those are the kind of executive orders he can do. If he can declare something unconstitutional, that's fine too. He can do that as well. And but the whole thing is, it's got to be in the books. So he can have all these orders, and we can still laugh at them. Now look what happened. What's going on with Texas right now? I talked about that on that show yesterday, on the Texas Independence Referendum Act. So hey, and of course everyone's talking about his how many people aren't pleased every time he speaks. There's always more thumbs downs than ups. I'm sorry, this is very comical, folks. Like I said, the cloak and dagger extravaganza continues. Always remain vigilant. Prep yourself. Expect a rough ride. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty or happy joy. It's going to be very dark. I hope it's not the case. But please, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. I'm doing my part as well. So, just I say that with love and in good faith. And everyone's worried about, are they going to try to take all our rights away? Well, like I said before, your rights are natural born. And I'm going to talk about an article from the Foundation of Education Freedom, Foundation for Economics Education, okay, FEE.org. This actually came out on the 18th of January, so a little over 2 years. And it says here, rights and non-rights, a simple way to distinguish the two. Lawrence W. Reed wrote this. Despite the centrality of rights in American history, it is rarely apparent today that Americans are of widely different views on what a right is and how many we live, rights come from, or why we have any in the first place. So That's what Mr. Reed has to say. There's a quote here. That all men are by nature are equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights. And it says here, of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot by any compact deprive or divest their posterity, namely the enjoyment of life and liberty, with the means of acquiring and possessing property and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. George Mason, in the Virginia Declaration of Rights, 1776. That'll be Article 1, too, if I'm correct. Rights are in the news these days, perhaps as much as they are in George Mason's time. A score of politicians prepared to announce their 2020 campaigns for president of the United States, and we can expect rights to be in news every day. Remember, folks, this is an archive, so bear with me. As they promise to us one after another, you have a right to this or that. If elected, I'll make sure you get it. Will soon be a monotonous refrain. America is a nation founded on the notion of rights. Our independence was declared in 1776 on a foundation of inalienable, or they call it unalienable rights granted to us not by mortal authorities but by the Creator Himself. And just to let you folks know, when it comes about clarified about Creator, I read a book called A 5,000 Year Leap. Very good. You should check it out. And when the founding fathers, when Jefferson wrote this about the Creator, it wasn't a particular religious deity, but it represents a creator that represents the universal cosmos. All right, so I'm just letting you know that. It's a good read, by the way. 5,000 Year Leap. Our ancestors rebelled against the British because they believed that such rights as life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness were being thwarted by oppressors in London. Our founding documents were put forth specifically for the purposes of securing and protecting rights. Battles, both intellectual and physical, were fought in the ensuing decades to ensure that rights remained a priority of government or were extended to people not originally included. So this is a business of rights is distinguishable from the American experience. Indeed, it is at the very core of that experience. Removing rights from the equation, and America is just one of countless countries, past and present, in which individuals possess nothing more than what those in power decide to give them or allow them to have. Despite the centrality of rights in American history, it's readily apparent today that Americans are of widely different views on what a right is. How many we have, where rights come from, or why we have any in the first place. It is a right of the same thing as a wish. Why or why not? Or if you need something, that does not mean you have a right to it. If I require a kidney, do I have a right to one of yours? It is a right, something that can or should be granted or denied by majority vote. Does a document such as the Constitution or an executive order or a law of Congress create rights, or do such paper instruments simply acknowledge rights, either by defending or eroding them, than people inherently possess? If you walk down Main Street America today and ask random citizens these questions, and I'll bet you'd hear a plethora, I always get the tongue tied here, of different and conflicting answers. Read over those questions again and think about how would you respond. This essay doesn't provide all the answers, nor does it raise all the relevant questions. Its purpose is more limited than that. If it prompts the reader to think of rights in a deeper, more thoughtful way than the heretofore, and then contribute to the public discourse of the subject in a meaningful way, then it will achieve my purposes. I'll even include a recommended reading list at the end. I've given this subject some thought over the years and feel confident in providing the reader with a couple of lists to consider. The first one itemizes what I personally think you have a right to. The second is a partial roster of things I personally think you don't have a right to. And I readily grant you that you have every right to disagree with me. You have a right to, 1, your life unless compromised by taking or attempting to take that of another person without a self-defense justification. 2, your thoughts. 3, your speech, which is a verbally or written expression of number 2, as long as you don't steal it from another without permission or credit. That's good, because if you notice, most of my shows, folks, I always give credit to the websites, to the author, and I always post it on here just to give you my intake on these articles, my commentary, and you can have your own decisions and you can verify them. Okay, I'll always make sure I put those links on my page so you can read it for yourselves. It's more of an educational thing too, so that's why I enjoy doing this. And because right now you got a lot of stagnancy, and state knows best. Statism is the most dangerous religion in human history. Let that sink in, right? Number 4, material property were you freely given, that you created yourself, or that you freely traded for. 5, raise and educate your children as you see fit. 6, live in peace and freedom so long as you don't threaten the peace and freedom of others. Absolutely. You see some of these activist groups are harassing other people for speaking, going on their property. See, that's called trespassing, transgressing. All right? So I will continue on here. You don't have a right to 1, high-speed broadband internet access. 2, cheeseburgers, cheap wine, or even expensive wine for that matter, or an iPhone. 3, somebody else's house, car, boat, income, business, or bank account. 4, the labor of another person you're not freely contracted with. You can't enslave somebody, in other words. 5, medical care from a witch doctor or a skilled surgeon or anybody in between. 6, taxpayer-funded, i.e., coercively appropriated, child daycare, college education, contraceptives, colonoscopies, or other sports stadiums. 7, anything that's not yours even though you really want it and think you're entitled to it. 8, conscript other people's children into school you think they should attend. 9, free stuff in general unless the rightful owner chooses to offer it. 10, anything a politician flattered you with by claiming you have a right to it. Right, beware of the rhetoric. Of course, gray areas and reasonable qualifications exist. For an example, while I believe you do have a right to raise and educate your children as you see fit, abuse and neglect are not defensible. But let's keep our eyes on the big picture, the broad principles here. Positive versus negative rights. Now, look at those 2 lists again, carefully. How does the nature of the first list contrast with the nature of the second? Answer. In the case of the first list, nothing is required of other people except that they will leave you alone for you to have a right to something in the second list. However, requires that other people to be compelled to provide that something to you. That's monumental difference. The first list comprise what are often called both natural rights and negative rights. Natural because they derive from our essential nature as unique, sensate individuals, and negative because they don't impose obligations on others beyond a commitment to not violate them. The items in the second are called positive rights because others must give them to you to be coerced into doing so if they decline. The late Tibor Machan, who wrote many articles for Fee in the 1970s and 80s, elaborated on the distinction of the perils of positive rights. That's what he says here. Positive rights trump freedom. According to the doctrine, human beings by nature owe as a matter of enforceable obligation part or even all of their lives to other persons. Generosity and charity thus cannot be left to individual conscience. If people have such positive rights, no one can be justified in refusing service. to others. One may be conscripted to serve regardless of one's own choice and goals. If positive rights are valid, then negative rights cannot be, for the two are mutually contradictory. The existence of negative rights, wrote McCann, means that no one ought to enslave another, coerce another, or deprive another of his property, and that each of us may properly resist such conduct when others engage in it. So while I believe neither you nor I have a right to any of those desperate things in the second list, I hasten to add that we certainly have the right to seek them, to create them, to receive them as gifts from a willing benefactors, or to trade for them. We just don't have the right to compel anyone to give them to us or pay for them. And if any of this did, then why would another individual have a similar right to take them from us? That is a good question. And it has merit, of course. The Constitution's role in rights. What about constitutional rights? A phrase we hear from people on all sides of the political spectrum. I like what Michael Badnarik said about them in 2004 book, Good to Be King. And he ran for president of the Libertarian Party, so he's a very, very unique man. He goes, people are usually surprised to discover that I hate the phrase constitutional rights. I hate the phrase because it's terribly misleading. Most of the people who say or hear it have the impression that the Constitution grants them their rights. Nothing could be further from the truth, strictly speaking. It is the Bill of Rights that enumerates our rights, but none of the founding documents bestow anything on you at all. The government can burn the Constitution and shred the Bill of Rights, but those actions wouldn't have the slightest effect on the rights you've already had. And he's absolutely correct. And it says here, if you're motivated to explore further nature, origin, meaning, and extent of rights, then you're right on the website. You're on the right website. Over decades, Fee has published many articles by numerous authors on just this matter. I close this recommendation on the 10 best. Let think clearly about rights by Jeffrey Harding. Human Rights Are Property Rights by Murray N. Rothbard. Of Rights, Natural and Arbitrary by Clarence Carson. Is Healthcare a Human Right by Trevor Burrus. No Rights Without Property Rights by Frank Chodorov. How FDR's Economic Bill of Rights Changed American Politics by Burton W. Folsom. Rights by Henry Hazlitt. Freedom or Free for All by Lawrence W. Reed. When Wishes Become Rights by Leonard E. Reed. Rights versus Entitlements by Stephen Yates. And I agree. I have to agree with Mr. Bednarik, because even myself, I had a habit in the past of using constitutional rights and take the issue to look a little further and got a lot of clarification. Now I tell them it's a natural born or God-given right. I use both because secular or people of faith will commend that quote. And I've used it before at a commission meeting in Broward County many years ago. When I said that, I did a whole place that all had their hands up. They couldn't applaud. They all had their hands up in solidarity. Like, they love what I said. So that is essential. That's why I do agree. Your rights are natural, born, or God-given. No exceptions. They can say whatever they want. They can write all this garbage. Okay? This is why this article 2 years ago still is relevant today. So, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, etc. All you clowns, you can never take away our rights. Anything you support which is invalid in our Constitution or breaches our rights as a whole, it's void without any arguments. No debates, No exceptions. And that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnote of this article on my Spreaker page. And I'd like to thank everyone with their comments. Okay, thank the comments. I know in YouTube, even the people that they may disagree. I appreciate that. And someone actually sent me an email too on pertaining to John Schaefer, and she was like very thankful that I support the principles. And I might talk about another time. I'm going to give her a call first. So, but it's a doctor, by the way. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And it really got me. So I'm like, wow. So I'm not insane. Hey, so if you want to contact me, you can hit me at numbers03 at protonmail.com. And I prefer, folks, if you start using Proton Mail accounts, because as long as you get, because remember, if you do from one Proton Mail email from your Proton Mail account to someone else, is a lot more secure. If you use Gmail, they track and trace. So that's why I'm really being minimal on the Gmail account. Don't need them. I've been transferring some stuff on my Proton Mail account, so I never get too personal these emails, and it's essential. So I always tell folks, look at things in the bigger picture. All right, so definitely do that. And if you want to donate, you can hit me at paypal.me or cash.app/LokiLuck3. And if you want to donate to the Foundation for Economic Freedom, I encourage you to do so. Plus, even hit their website, subscribe, go look at their website, buy some of the books. They actually did reprinted one called The Law by the late Frederick B. State, which I have. And he talked about liberty, based on a writer in France. Very good stuff. And what he talked about in 1850 is still applicable today. All right, so just giving you an example. Always appreciate their work. That's why I take a chance on narrating their articles and give them the credits they deserve. So you always got to support these liberty-minded institutions, because these other big wigs don't care about your rights. They think you're numbers. I don't see it that way. And including FEE and Mises, JPFO, I can go on. We see things in a different way. All right, folks. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.